Having to compare lists in Excel is a very common task. For example, I may have two lists of email addresses and I need to know which addresses are in the first list that are not in the second list. Or I may want to know which addresses are common to both lists, which addresses exist in both lists. And there are multiple ways of comparing lists. We will go over that in just a minute. And multiple features and tools in Excel that we can use to do that, depending on the type of comparison that we need to do and also the scenario on which we are working. So, for example, if I have these two lists here and I want to know which names belong to both lists, I can quickly highlight the two columns containing names and come to Home Conditional Formatting. And from here, highlight sales rules and duplicate values. And like this, I can see which names are common to both lists. And if I just need the information visually like this, it's very quick and very easy, and that's it. But in other situations, I may need to extract those names and put them separate on a list. Another tool that I use frequently for this type of task is Power Query. If I load each one of these tables to Power Query and then create a third query merging these two tables. To merge the queries, we can come to Home and then Merge Queries, and from here choose, for example, Merge Queries as New. And then we get to choose the two tables that we already have resulting from the previous two queries. And from here, I choose the column I want to use as a comparison. In fact, in Power Query, we can use even multiple columns to do a comparison by multiple criteria. In this case, I'm comparing by the name, and under Join Kind, I get 6 options here that I can choose from. For example, Inner allows me to find only the items that belong to both tables. So we have 6 options here. On a recent project, I needed to compare two lists, but I wanted the result to update immediately if changes were made to any of the lists. And in Power Query, we need to go to Data and click the refresh button to get the results updated. So that was not convenient in that particular scenario. So I thought, well, I'll do this with dynamic array functions. And then I thought, well, it could be interesting to do the exercise of building all the 6 Power Query join kinds, the 6 ways of merging two lists with dynamic array functions. So that's what we are going to do. In fact, we are going to do 7 different join kinds because there's one that Power Query does not offer natively, but we can do a workaround to do it. And that's what we are going to do. So are you ready to try this with me? So let's start. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Celia. I am a Microsoft MVP specializing in Excel, creating solutions, custom solutions for companies, and also providing training in Excel and Power Query. My favorite topic is about Excel reporting automation. If you want to automate your Excel reports, check the video description to find how to join the training program. You can also get the exercise files for this exercise that we are about to do. Check the video description as well. There's a link there where you can access the files. And so that's it. If you haven't subscribed yet, remember to subscribe and give this a like if you enjoy the content. And let's start. Okay, so first let's quickly review the types of joins that we can do when comparing two lists. Those two lists, we can refer to them as first table and second table, or left table and right table. When we want to find all the items from the first table, the left table, and then find any corresponding information from the second table, if they exist in the second table, we are talking about a left outer join. If we do that, but getting all the items from the second table, the right table, and finding the matching information in the first table, we are doing a right outer join kind. If we put together in one unique list all the items that belong to both tables, we are doing a full outer. If we compare the two lists to find which items belong to the first table only, we are doing a left anti join kind. If we do that with the second table, right anti, And if we look for the common elements to both tables, we are doing an inner merge using the inner join kind. There's a seventh join kind that we can do. It's called full anti, and it's about getting in one list all the items that belong to the first table only or to the second table only. So we are getting, it's the same thing as putting together all the items and excluding those that are common to both lists. We are going to take care of this example too. So for this exercise, I am using the two lists formatted as tables. So if you do not have your sets formatted as tables, you may want to do that. You just select anywhere in your range and then you come to Insert and then Table. Mine is grayed out because this is already a table. This table here has a name. All tables have a name. This is table 1 and the second one is table 2, which are in fact the default names that Excel gives us when we create a table, and in this case I thought the names were just perfect for what I needed, so I didn't change those names. And we are going to do this in 2 rounds. The first time I'm going to be only concerned in getting the names that result from the comparison that I am doing. And as we progress, we will also be bringing other items that we have in our list. For example, the email address balance in the first list and the address in the second list. We will bring those two into our resulting list as well. But first, let's just look at the names. So first comparison, the left anti or left anti, I'm never sure how to say that. So we are looking for the names that exist in the first table only. They are not in the second table. We already have the conditional formatting applied here, so I know that for this comparison, my resulting list needs to generate the list containing the names in the white cells here in table 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use different functions in Excel. It's not a unique way of solving each problem. You may find other ways. Feel free to share them in the comments. I would love to hear what your solution is. So for this one, I'm going to say filter the names in column name in table 1. And the criteria to include in my filter results is that when I count if, I'm going to use COUNTIFS, I like it better, the names in column name in table 2, that's my criteria range. And then the criteria is all the names that are in this column. To use the filter function, the criteria that I enter needs to produce a set of Boolean values, true and false. So I'm going to say I want the values for which when I count if the second list contains those values, I want it to be 0. Because I want them to be just in table 1. So that's it. We could say what to give us if the list is empty. I'll just put no values found, close parentheses, and enter. And there we go. We got exactly what we wanted. All the names that are in white cells are the ones that the function returns. If, for example, I add another name that does not exist in the second list, let's say Celia, I get that name immediately in my formula result. So that's it. Left anti merge is done. What if I want to find the names that exist in the second table only, the right anti join kind? It is about doing the exact same thing. I'm going to copy the formula that we just created for the first merge and paste it here. And we just need to switch table 2 with table 1. Where's 1 I put 2, where's 2 I put 1. And now I get all the names in the second list, the ones in the white cells that correspond to the names that do not belong to the first list. So second merge is done. Let's close here for now. And now third one is in fact that last extra join kind that I showed you, which is about giving us all the names that exist in one table only. The workaround for that in Power Query is to build 2 merges two separate queries, one that gives us the names that belong to the first table only, another one that gives us the names that belong to the second table only, and then build a third query that appends those results together. And that's what we are going to do here with dynamic array functions. So what I can do is to come to my first formula. Let's copy this here. And then I'm going to say, give me this, and then stack the results of this vertically. So I'm going to use the VSTACK function. Stack this, comma, Alt Enter, paste again, remove that equal there. The second formula was the same, but 2 and 1 switched in each one of the occurrences. So stack this with that. That's it. And now we have all the names that are in the white cells in the first table up to here, stacked on top of all the names that are in the white cells in the second table. And that's the full outer join kind to compare when comparing these two lists, looking at the names. Moving on, now I want the names that exist in both lists. This corresponds to the inner join kind. One way of finding this is using the same technique, filter the first column to find the names that when I count them, looking at the second list, my count for each one of those names is greater than 0, meaning that they exist in the second list. Find the names in the first one that exist in the second one. If I switch and say find the names in the second table that exist in the first, it would be the same result. Okay, so I'm going to say filter the names in my first table, column name, that when I do a COUNTIFS in this case, using the second table name column as a range and using each one of the values in the name column in this first table as criteria, when I do this count for each one of the values in table 1, I want those that produce a result of a count greater than 0. And then we can say if the list is empty, no values found, or anything else that you prefer. Close parentheses and enter. And now we have all the red names: Alfred, Briley, Evelyn, Kenzie, and Raphael, which are the red names in the two lists. If I add Mary here, which is a name that exists in the second table as well, now Mary gets added to the list and the cell for Mary gets red because of the conditional formatting. So the inner join kind is done. Moving on. Now let's take care of the left outer join kind. I want a list with all the names that exist in the first table and then find any information available for those names if they exist in the second table. So to get the names from the first table, I can simply point to that column with names. That's it. And now we can, for example, use XLOOKUP to find each one of these names, but I can refer to the entire array by putting a hash sign at the end of the cell reference. So XLOOKUP each one of those values where in the column name of table 2 and return the column address in table 2. If not found, I will leave empty, and then we want to say we want an exact match. So 0 and close parentheses and enter. So there we go. If we want to have one formula only instead of two formulas, we can remove this from here. So cut this, Control X, and come to the initial cell where we put the first array, and we go this time to stack the results of two formulas but horizontally. So I'm going to use the HSTACK function, in one column, I'm going to put the results of this array, Alt Enter, and then on the second column, I want to put the results of the XLOOKUP formula. And now we could close parentheses, except that if I do that, it will complain about a circular reference because I'm referring to the cell AB3, which is the exact cell where this formula is being entered. So here I can say XLOOKUP, the values in column name in table 1, and then I can close my parentheses here for the HSTACK function. I could also make it a little bit more sophisticated and use the let function, which we will be able to use in other scenarios here in this exercise. So there you go, all the names in table 1 and the corresponding information. For example, for Alfred, I find his address that exists in the second table, and I get the list of all the names in the first table. So now if I want a right outer join, which is the next one, it's about getting all the names from column name in table 2 and finding all the information that exists in table 1 for those names. So I'm going to copy this. Let's move on. Well, we can say that first we need to switch and find the names in column in table 2, and then XLOOKUP those names in table 1, except that in table 1 I do not have an address column. We could try to point to the two columns all at once, but it's not going to work. So I could say, as a result, give me the two columns, email and balance. If I do that, I only get the first one. Excel is not able to deal with arrays of arrays. Okay, and then we can come and do the XLOOKUP again and say XLOOKUP the values from table 2 column 1 in table 1 column name, and please give us the result that you find in column balance. And then we can say if not found, empty string, and we are looking for an exact match. In fact, this is a default value. We could just leave the parameter empty, but I like to put the value anyways. So that's it. We are stacking horizontally three things: column name from table 2, and then the results that we get when we look for those names in table 1 and look for email addresses, and then the result when you look for those names in table 1 and look for balance values. And there we go. So this function here, the right outer join compared to the left outer join, required one extra XLOOKUP formula because we are extracting values from table 1 that contains one more column than table 2 does. Now let's look at the last join kind here, where we will want to get a list containing the names from the two tables, and with those names I want to bring all the information available in both tables that might exist for each one of those names, either in both tables or in just one of them. And in this situation I will definitely use the let function. So I'm going to say let, what the heck is let? Let it be, let it be, let it be. So the let function, I always think of it like let it be. Let it be. Let it be what? So I decide on a name. I'm going to say all names. Now everyone knows how bad I sing, how badly I sing. I sing that. That's fine. Okay, let's call all names to the list that results in putting together the two name columns. I want to stack vertically column name in table 1 with column name in table 2. Okay, now I just want a unique list of names, so I'm going to say unique. Okay, and then we could also put a sort outside the unique function. Let's leave it like that for now. So all names is the list of that I get when I put together the two named columns and just consider unique values. So if I say let all names be the result of unique VSTACK table 1 name with table 2 named columns, and then I say then give me all names, this is what I get. Let's put this up a little bit. I get all the names from table 1, Alfred, Briley, Dorothy, all the names until Tantum, and then any other names that did not come up yet will come next. So Amia, Alfred does not repeat because already exists there, and all the remainder names that we have in table 2. Okay. So now what do I want to do with that? In fact, I'm going to select and drag this one cell down, and I'm going to put all the column headers here at the top. Name, email, balance, and then address. So these will be our column headers. So how do I now get the other values that I need for these extra columns? I'm going to HSTACK all names with all the other results. So I'm going to say, let's find the email addresses for each one of these names and then stack them horizontally with a column that already contains the names, and then the same thing for balance, and the same thing for addresses. So let's come here before the last comma where we finally put the result of the let function and add another name. So now let emails be the result of X looking up all the names that I already have in my all names, in the result of the first formula that I called all names. So XLOOKUP all names, where in the email addresses exist in the first table. So look for the names in table 1 and give me in that same table column email. If not found, just empty, and then 0 for an exact match. Okay. So if I say that all names is the result of this formula and emails is the result of this formula, then at the end I want to display the result of HSTACK, stacking horizontally the result of the all names formula with the emails formula. That's the HSTACK, that's the let function parentheses. Okay, because I did not sort the names alphabetically, I first get all the names from table 1, and these are the ones that have an email address. So now it's the same thing to get all the other two columns, or a similar reasoning. So now let balances be the result of, I'm going to copy this, X looking up the names in table 1 and returning not the column email but the column balance. And in here I want to add the balances to the result of HSTACK. And finally, let addresses be the result of X looking up all the names in table 2, because now the addresses only exist in table 2, column name, and return column address. And here I want to add to my HSTACK formula the result of that formula. That is the result of this XLOOKUP formula. I gave the name addresses to that result. So let's press enter. Getting an error here because addresses exist in table 2. So this is table 2. And there you go. So now we have all the names that exist in both lists have the 3 parameters like Alfred does, email, balance, and address. All the other names that only exist in one table may have only part of the information. One of the things that I did not mention before is that dynamic array functions unfortunately do not bring any cell formatting from where we are extracting or reading values. So the balance, for example, here, although it's formatted as currency here, does not come formatted like that. So we would have to come and manually format this range or extra rows if we are expecting this to grow, and apply the formatting there. And so now let's go back to the first one and just adjust to see how we could get not only the names but also any extra information that we may have available in those 2 tables. So left anti, if I am getting the names that exist only in the first table, then there's no point in asking for addresses, because addresses only exist in the second table. These names do not exist there. But what I can do, I'm going to copy this, paste it here, is instead of filtering table 1 column name, if I filter the entire table and say filter the table and give me those rows where when I look for the names in the second table I get a count that is 0, then I get this. Let's just make this bigger there. And there we go. We get the result of the names plus any extra information available for those names. This is more similar to what we would get if we were comparing these lists in Power Query. Let's do the next one. So it's very similar, right anti. If I want to get the names that only exist in the second table, but I also want them to bring the information about their addresses, I just need to say filter the table 2, using the same criteria that we built before, and that's it. We get the addresses coming along with the names that only exist in table 2. For this case here, since I'm putting together a list that contains names from the 2 tables, I'm going to put the column headers here, and I'm going to do a reasoning similar to the previous ones. I'm going to paste a formula here. I already have it ready. So I'm calling the word names to the result of stacking vertically all the names that only exist in the first table with all the names that only exist in the second table. So then I am performing an XLOOKUP, looking up the names, all the names that we got from the first VSTACK formula, looking for them in table 1 where the email addresses are, and looking up for the addresses there. Then, and to the result of that, I am calling emails. Let it be emails. Let emails be. Let emails be the result of XLOOKUP. XLOOKUP, I mean, creating a verb here. Then let balances be the result of XLOOKUP names in table 1 column name and returning the balances. Then let addresses be the result of XLOOKUP all the values in the names in table 2, getting the addresses, and then stack horizontally HSTACK all these results, names, and then to the right put the results of the emails formula, and then to the right the results of the balances formula, this one, and then the results of the addresses, and enter. And there we go, we get all the information there. If I want to have these sorted alphabetically, I can come to the result of HSTACK and apply a sort function. Okay. Now I get my names sorted alphabetically and the remainder of the information sorted accordingly. Okay, so now let's look at the inner join kind. If we copy this formula here that we created before, and instead of table 1 name column, I say filter the entire table, I get all the names that belong to table 1 and table 2, and it comes with all the information available in table 1 already for those names. Now I also want to add the address information. So I want to look for the names that are in this array that is composed of 3 columns. So I want to say choose just the first column of this result that I have here now, and look for those names in table 2, column name, and return the address. So I'm going to use the let function again. Okay, so let it be, let table 1 items be the result that we just saw, one extra S here, when we apply that filter function. That range that we see there, 3 columns and 5 rows, I'm calling it table 1 items. Okay. Now I'm going to say, look at the first column only of these table 1 items. So, and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it common names. These are the common names between the 2 tables. Let common names be the result of choosing columns from the result of table 1 items. I just want column 1. Okay, choose columns, column 1. So to that column 1, we named it common names. Now we want to say, find the addresses for the common names. So let addresses be, let the word addresses represent the result of looking up with XLOOKUP all the common names. So look up for the common names in table 2, column name, and return the column address from table 2 as well. If not found, just leave it empty, although in this case it will be found because we are talking about the common names in the between the 2 tables, and I want an exact match. Okay, so now I have all the pieces. What I need is to stack the column addresses to the right of the table 1 items. That's the only information that we are missing. So Alt Enter here. Now I say HSTACK, stack horizontally, table 1 items with the result of addresses. And close and enter. So now we have all the information from 2 tables. We could put the column headers here at the top, and we need to format the currency column if we want to. Moving on to the left outer example. In this case here, we have the names from table 1, all the names from table 1, and then we look for the information available about addresses in table 2. By using the exact formula, with the exception that instead of filtering the column name in table 1 and filtering all the table instead, we get what we want. We get full table 1 with all the information, and then the result of the addresses that are available for the names that are common between table 1 and table 2. Okay. Right outer, it's very similar. We already have the result of all the names in table 2 and returning the information available in table 1. If instead of stacking column name only, and I stack it with all the full table 2, let's see, Control C, paste here. So if I just change the formula, removing the name of the column, and say, give me all the table 2, entire table 2, and then stack with the results of looking up for the corresponding email addresses, and then the balances for each one of the names, we get what we need. Okay. And finally, this last one does not need any extra changes. We already have all the names with all the information available for those names in table 1 and table 2. So this one was done the first round. And so that's it. This is what I had for you. The beautiful thing about this is that the result of these list comparisons, the results that we built, they will update immediately when we make changes to any of the two tables. Whereas with Power Query, we would have to refresh, go to data and refresh. But there are pros and cons depending on the situation where we need to do this list comparison. For example, if the lists are not in the same file where I'm working on, I need to import those lists from separate files. Power Query would be a better choice. And in Power Query, we can easily compare with multiple criteria. Let's say I want to find occurrences that are common to two tables by looking at two columns in each table. That is very easy to do with Power Query. It requires a lot more work with dynamic array functions. So that's it. I hope you liked it, and kudos to you for being until the end. Type in the word, magic word could be let it be. It's not a word, it's an expression, so that I know that you were one of the brave ones that stayed until the end. Remember to give it a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and if you like the content, and share this with your network, because you never know when a piece of information makes someone's day. Have a good day. Bye now.